During excavations at Eridu, stratified prehistoric material came from two soundings, one in a hut area and the other was in an area where temples had been built one atop the other over a period of hundreds of years.
Starting at the lowest level, just above virgin soil, and working upward, Eridu ware, crafted by the hands of unknown potters, was found at level 19, the lowest level, and continued up to level 11. Even at the lowest level, though, we have an indication of possibly two distinct cultures living at Eridu at the same time.
Pottery shards, greenish in color, often associated with Ubaid ceramics, were found in relatively high quantities. Here is an example of Ubaid ware. Archaeologist John Oates concluded this may indicate a further division within these levels. Haji Muhammad ware first appeared at level 17 and disappeared by level 7, and typical Ubaid pottery arrived by level 12.
Eridu ware, then, was first in order of appearance, though mixed with an Ubaid type of pottery, followed closely by Haji Muhammad ware. Eridu ware and Haji Muhammad ware continued together through 4 levels of occupation before typical Ubaidan pottery arrived. Later, red and gray Uruk ware signified the arrival of the Sumerians at Eridu. Monochrome Uruk ware replaced the painted Ubaid pottery and continued all the way up to the surface. All the other wares were gone by level 6. So what conclusions can we make? Clearly, the Sumerians were the last settlers to reside at Eridu, replacing the Ubaidans. The Ubaidans replaced at least 2 other people groups who were the first to settle there, and nobody knows who they were.
A group of people of some description had to arrive there initially to devise a method to divert water from the Euphrates down the old river channel to provide a sufficient amount of water for the villagers to drink and to be able to water their flocks and fields. They built reed huts and began a small community.
Then a fellow arrives with a wife in tow. Perhaps he was known to them and perhaps not. They were a couple who had sinned before their God, were cast out of their lovely garden, and now needed a place of refuge, a place to call home. Though they had been naked in the garden, here they would need clothes. Perhaps they needed to learn the local language. It would be here at Eridu they would join this small group of early settlers and raise their family. Initially, they had 2 boys. One they called Cain. The other was called Abel. Cain took to the fields while Abel tended his flocks.
As best we can tell, Adam was well received at Eridu, and although his status had changed dramatically, he continued to bear allegiance to his Creator, and offerings were made.
Whether an Adamite population was responsible for Eridu ware or Haji Muhammad ware cannot be readily determined. We can infer that 2 or more distinct populations were living in Eridu early on. Whoever was responsible for Eridu ware, Haji Muhammad ware, Adamite or otherwise, they were supplanted by Ubaid culture, as only Ubaid pottery could be found at higher levels, until the Sumerians arrived and the potteries changed once again.
We know that the Akkadian population sprang from this area at or near to this time. Whether Adam's generations were included among the Akkadians, or whether they were the Akkadians exclusively, can't be discerned.
Some intermarriages or gene flow between populations seems likely. A wife or 2 may have come from a non-Adamic population and became part of Adam's extended clan. It's impossible to tell.
Seton Lloyd, who had been technical advisor for the Eridu expedition, published an article in a 1948 edition of the Illustrated London News. In the newspaper article, Lloyd described the Ubaidans as hitherto considered the earliest settlers in South Iraq. Hitherto the discoveries found at Eridu, that is. Lloyd described the temples found there, such as Temple 11, that from earlier designs retained familiar features, such as buttressed walls, a central sanctuary, and lateral chambers.
Until the excavations at Eridu in the 1940s, archaeologists had considered the Ubaidians first to settle southern Mesopotamia, followed in sequence by the Akkadians, who settled the area up the Euphrates River. Then, according to conventional wisdom, the Sumerians arrived, who located primarily from Ur to areas north along the Tigris. The discovery at Eridu, according to Lloyd, changed the equation, setting up a new world order. I'm quoting here from the Illustrated London News. In the settlement area, we almost immediately had the good fortune to encounter a cemetery of the Al-Ubaid period, exactly corresponding in date to Temple 6. It contained, at a rough estimate, over 1,000 graves, of which during the weeks which followed, we excavated about 200. Early in the 4th millennium BC, these prehistoric men and women had been laid at full length in rectangular tombs, constructed of sun-dried bricks. Buried with them were standard groups of painted pottery, so well preserved that in the course of the season, we were able to recover no fewer than 200 broken but complete vessels. Sometimes the tombs, which were simply filled with earth and sealed with mud brick, had been reopened so that the husbands or wives of the original occupants could be laid beside them. Occasionally, the body of a child was added, though more often children were provided with smaller tombs of their own and miniature pottery. One woman had been buried in a skirt with an ornamental belt and a 6-inch fringe of black and white beads. Laid beside another was a perfectly preserved terracotta figurine, the male equivalent of the famous lizard goddesses found at Ur. A man, possibly a fisherman, had a clay model boat with a socket for the mast, perhaps the earliest representation of a sailing vessel yet found. At level 14, a smaller temple reappeared in the center of our sounding, and at level 16 there was a perfect little miniature shrine, about 4 meters square, already incorporating all the principal features of the later temples, such as an altar in a niche recess with a door facing it, and a central offering table showing traces of burnt offerings.
This is a picture published in the Illustrated London News in 1946. Underneath the picture it said, "The simple shrine which constituted Eridu's oldest temple, 5th millennium BC. It shows the typical features of an altar and a recess, lateral niches, central offering table, and door facing the altar. Further, the altar showed traces of burnt offerings."
Strangely, no one at that time or since seemed to realize what exactly they had found. What people group would build an altar and present burnt offerings? Today, if you would visit Abu Shurain, the modern village that is situated there, you can visit the mosque that was built nearby, commemorating its famous forefather, and say a prayer for him if you like, as the occasional visitor still does. As for the temple, this picture is all that remains that can be seen. The relentless desert sands have reclaimed their relics. Thank you for watching, and thank you to my co-host Ken Miller. We hope that through these presentations you'll have a better appreciation for the inspired Genesis text, and will share this information with family and friends with confidence that Genesis history can be reinforced with evidence to support its validity. And if you have any questions, please email me and we will try to answer them in future episodes.